Within the space of dreams, everything was destroyed. The entire city was now in ruins due to the new attack that our boy had learned. He extended his hand and began to ponder silently, not knowing who wanted to interrupt his training session. Luang remained calm, and his attention was fixed on his hands. He could no longer keep hiding his power, but he was satisfied since he had enjoyed enough. During this year, he did not remember how much metallurgy liquid he had absorbed or how many high-energy substances he had consumed. Luang's eyes began to shine with confidence, and a smile appeared on his face. The Blood Master had been condensing and fragmenting ceaselessly. Immortal cells had grown frantically, and now their number had reached 183. Luang began to use his power, making martial fire emerge from the palm of his hand. His attention fixed on it. He had 9 times more immortal cells than a year ago. Things had changed a lot. Before he could not face a martial saint, but now he was going to be able to kill them without problems. He began to imagine his body, with his heart shining intensely. His body had also reached its limit. The stellar patterns covered his entire body. If he wanted to continue obtaining more immortal cells, he needed to reach the 9th level and use the power of the great force of heaven and earth to break through the limitations of the current phase of the stellar immortal body. Luang's eyes began to shine with calmness. He put his hand on his chin and started to ponder. Reaching level 9 was going to be a bit complicated since currently, he couldn't even fully merge his essence, energy, and spirit into a single core. Much less could he construct a Dharma manifestation or create his own mark of the martial path. His accumulation was massively excessive. He began to imagine Martial Saint Zhao Jai dressed as a pizza maker. He clenched his fists and, with a serious gaze, started kneading the dough. Luang observed him with a curious expression and made a comparison. For Zhao Jai, reaching level 9 was easy. He only had to gather 3 lumps of flour dough, whereas our boy would have to work much harder. 3 giant suns at high temperatures surrounded by martial fire appeared in front of our boy. He had to compress 3 giant suns and fuse them into one without increasing its volume. It could be said that without flames of millions of degrees high temperature and pressure 100,000 times greater, it would be something completely impossible to achieve. Luang's eyes filled with rage, causing him to clench his teeth and fist tightly. He began to gaze at his fist, and after thinking it over several times, he came to the conclusion that he needed pressure, an incomparable pressure. Only under an unprecedented high-pressure battle could he complete this step. But there was a problem. This type of pressure could not be provided by a simple martial saint. While he was deep in thought, something caught his attention, making him curious. When he looked to the side, he saw Lucia and Professor Nepson talking among themselves. The two seemed nervous. Luang's gaze fixed on Nepson, and it didn't take long for him to realize that Nepson had reached his limit. This was the right moment to go out in search of some pressure because, after all, it was time to grant the devoted Nepson his ultimate dream. The arrival of a god. At the doors of the laboratory, someone launched a powerful burst of energy which hit the door directly. But the attack had no effect and the door remained intact. One of the men had fired a burst of energy with the help of an advanced weapon. They were furious to see that old Nepson was rebelling and had dared to activate the highest level defense mechanism. They were so furious that they swore to skin him alive. The bald man's eyes were full of rage and despair. A man with blue hair approached him, began observing him, and with a worried expression asked what to do now. Far from giving up, the bald man stood firm, and with a furious gaze decided to contact Mr. Harold, since only he had the key to the laboratory. He was sure that as soon as they obtained the key, they would be able to open the damn door. This made the eyes of the others begin to shine with hope. They clenched their fists and couldn't help but smile because they were determined to make Nepson pay for having scammed them. 10 minutes ago, 2 individuals surrounded by energy arrived on the island, landing in the mountains. The woman we saw earlier in the meeting room was also at the place. She placed her hands on her abdomen, and as the smoke was dispersing, with a respectful expression, she welcomed the lords, explaining that Martial Saint Harold had already taken all the elite combat forces. Now only second-line forces remained. Someone wearing black boots stepped forward and praised the woman named Cadiz for having done a good job this time. 2 men emerged. One of them was muscular, had vampire teeth and black angel wings. With an arrogant smile, he cracked his fingers, showing that he was ready. Next to him was a man with orange hair who was wearing sunglasses and calmly smoking a cigarette. The muscular man's eyes widened with joy. He couldn't help but smile since Lei's plan had worked. Lei began to walk toward him, extended his hand, and with a proud smile mentioned that the first collaboration between Darkstar and the Black Magic Society had been a complete success, and by the time Harold reacted, the entire Golden Ring Island would already be a pile of rubble. recapping what had happened in the assassination operation against the martial saint Lu Sheng. With a piercing expression, our boy had massacred everyone who stood in his way, causing more than half of the main members of the Black Magic Society to lose their lives. Instead of waiting for Ringmark and Darkstar to divide up the benefits in the battle for the crystals, it was better to take the initiative, attacking first and leaving Ringmark's main base in ruins. The additional gains could be split into a 20-80 portion with Darkstar, and this way, not only would losses be minimized, but even a small profit could be obtained. As for the news about the new energy crystal deposit, it was also intentionally leaked as part of the plan. The two men began to walk toward the mountains, and Lei decided it was time to completely destroy Ringmark's base. A wicked smile appeared on his face. His eyes were full of anticipation as he couldn't wait to see Harold's expression of anger and surprise when he returned and saw the rubble of the island. At the same time, inside the laboratory, Lucia went to the security room, and using her knowledge, she used the computer to activate the monitoring system. The life bar of the door was decreasing faster than before. Her attention was fixed on the screen, and with an uncertain gaze, she revealed that they had gone to look for the key that Lord Harold had, asking what to do now. While Lu Sheng was sleeping inside the capsule, Professor Nepsin crossed his arms, closed his eyes, and began to think about what to do now since there wasn't much time. Lu Sheng continued sleeping and absorbing the metallurgy liquid. Nepsin turned around and his attention focused on Lu Sheng. He started sweating and his eyes widened in desperation. He didn't know what to do since he had bet everything, and each time the heartbeat of the god grew stronger. Consumed by despair, Nepsin knelt before Lu Sheng and began to pray, asking him to please wake up. Several minutes passed and Lu Sheng did not wake up. Nepsin raised his head and started sweating like crazy. With a sincere expression, he asked God to reveal to the world the truths buried by time. The integrity bar of the defense system was dropping rapidly. It was now at 15%. Lucia's eyes were full of worry. She approached Nepsin, placed her hands on his shoulder, and with a concerned gaze, revealed that the protection shield's time was about to run out. Only 15% of the remaining time was left. Upon hearing this, Nepsin's eyes widened in surprise and fear, believing that all his effort had been for nothing and that everything was going to end here. But then, the crystal of the capsule began to crack, and upon feeling this, Lucia's and Nepsin's attention focused on it. Both were open-mouthed and somewhat surprised. The crystal of the capsule broke into pieces, causing the liquid to spill outside. Lu Sheng, who had his eyes closed, slowly began to make movements, until several seconds later, he opened his eyes and started to show a penetrating gaze. With a calm expression, he extended his hand and began to use his power, making energy appear in the palm of his hand. He stepped out of the capsule and used the manifestation of energy, transforming the energy into clothing. With a smile, he began to walk toward Lucia and Nepsin. Their jaws dropped, and their gazes fixed on Lu Sheng, causing their eyes to widen in surprise upon seeing that the god had finally resurrected. Still with his mouth open, Nepsin approached Lu Sheng and welcomed him, revealing that now that the great god had awakened, his glory was going to illuminate the entire world. Lu Sheng walked past him, began observing him, and with a serene gaze praised Nepsin for having done a good job, revealing that he knew everything he had done for him. Nepsin clasped his hands together, and his eyes widened with joy. He couldn't help but smile and feel excited upon realizing he had been recognized by God, thinking that now his entire life had been worth it. Lu Sheng took out an energy crystal, and while holding it in his hand, he turned to Nepsin and asked with a smile if this thing was called an energy crystal. Nepsin and Lucia knelt before Lu Sheng as a sign of respect. While our boy was examining the energy crystal, Nepsin explained that it was a treasure valuable enough to drive a level 9 martial master crazy. Its energy was immensely powerful, and the small piece Lu Sheng held in his hands was equivalent to a small nuclear reactor. Lucia rested her hands on her knees and remained listening in astonishment, silently. Lu Sheng turned around and with a calm and grateful expression, thanked Nepsin for the explanation, and then put the energy crystal in his pocket. It was no wonder that he had gained 7 immortal cells at once. For him, energy crystals were something interesting. He decided to keep one as a sample. Lu Sheng approached the table, and while grabbing the phone, he thanked Nepsin for waking him from his lethargy. He planned to use the phone to send them a message. Nepsin and Lucia, who were still on their knees, became somewhat curious, and the professor mentioned that it was an honor for him, and also asked if they could know his name. Our boy grabbed the phone and after unlocking it, started writing a message, revealing that his name was Lu Sheng. Lucia's eyes filled with suspicion. She leaned toward Neptun's ear and mentioned that this god was somewhat strange. Neptun snapped out of his trance, turned to Lucia, and with a confused expression asked what she was talking about. As if using the phone wasn't suspicious enough, Lu Sheng also posed and took a selfie. Neptun and Lucia's attention was fixed on him. She made it clear that Lu Sheng had nothing ancient about him, as he was even using a phone and taking selfies with total ease. She asked if a newly resurrected god would really know how to do this. Something caught Lu Sheng's attention, filling his mind with curiosity. It didn't take long for him to realize that something strange was happening outside. His eyes began to shine with seriousness. He turned toward the door, and with a piercing gaze revealed that there were 2 level 9 martial masters massacring the martial artists, and another level 9 martial master was heading toward the island from very far away. Upon hearing this, Lucia and Neptun couldn't help but go into shock. Both began to feel fear. Behind them was the laboratory door. At that moment, an alarm started to sound. Lucia activated her watch, causing a hologram to appear. One of the superiors informed Lucia about the bad news. The second royal seal had betrayed the organization. Darkstar and the Black Magic Society had joined forces to attack Golden Ring Island, and all bearers of the royal seals and monarch seals had died in combat, urging her and Neptun to escape quickly as the island was going to fall. Upon hearing this, Neptun's eyes widened in fear. He couldn't believe this had happened. Lucia got nervous and told Neptun that they had to leave since they couldn't allow so many years of research to fall into the hands of the enemy. Neptun's eyes were shining with determination. He turned towards her, asking why they should flee. He approached Lu Sheng, joined his hands, and with a nervous and desperate expression, begged the holy god to save the island of the Golden Ring. Lu Sheng began to observe him with a curious expression in silence. Without wasting time, he started walking towards the laboratory exit, asking if this was Neptun's first wish. The professor turned to Lu Sheng and his eyes widened in confusion. He was paralyzed, not knowing what to say. Our boy turned to him and with a confident expression promised to fulfill Neptun's wish. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, then don't forget to subscribe and like the video.